Hello, it's 12:30pm, it's Monday and you're tuned to a Celtic State of Mind. It's TMC time, aka the Monday Club. I'm Tony Haggerty, and as ever, I'm joined by the track-suited and booted resident rascal, Russell Boyce, and the wonderful Amy Canavan. How are you guys, alright?
Yes, Tony, my man. All good over here, mate. I'm in the mothership as well. It seems like right now we're getting a few of the contributors now diving into the mothership on a weekly basis. It's good to see us all try and look good in this impossible light, mate.
Well, Amy, yourself, you good?
Good, yeah. I've darted out of the mothership again. Yeah, I prefer the light in here. It's, I look like a ghost when I'm in there, but no, it's Russell can be in there today, but no, I'm doing well, thank you.
I'll hesitate to call you Casper, the friendly ghost. Right, we'll crack on, and it pains me greatly and it saddens me that we're going to have to kick off a football show with this, but it has to be addressed. I'm going to start with a quote, and the quote is, "It's not the creed nor his nationality that counts, it's the man himself." Now, those magnificent words will strike a chord with every Celtic supporter this morning, who will no doubt be thinking of our very own Japanese striker, Kyogo Furuhashi. And those words, incidentally, were said by legendary figure Willie Maley when he was asked to encapsulate Celtic's one club for all and multicultural ethos and roots. Now, a Celtic State of Mind does not exist to take chunks out of Rangers and their supporters. That's why it saddens me that we have to address this topic in what should have been another happy, shiny show talking about the football. But we need to address the abhorrent and vile racism directed at Furuhashi. And for those that didn't see it, a video appeared last night on various social media channels of Rangers supporters aiming vile and abhorrent racist abuse at Kyogo. Now, it wasn't too long ago where a lot of Celtic supporters stood shoulder to shoulder with Rangers fans, and racism was directed at their very own midfielder, Glenn Kamara. But personally, I think there are no words at times, and how many times can you say racism in all its forms is just wrong, wrong, wrong? But both Celtic and Rangers came out last night and made statements, and I wanted to read the Celtic statement for those that maybe didn't see it. If reports are accurate, then such sickening and pathetic racist behaviour directed towards Kyogo Furuhashi deserves absolute condemnation. Unfortunately, a number of Celtic players in recent years have suffered similar racist abuse. As a club open to all, we stand firmly against racism in all its forms, and we will give Kyogo our full support. Our stakeholders must work together in tackling all forms of bigotry. Now, the line, "As a club open to all, we stand firmly against racism in all its forms, and we will give Kyogo our full support." Russell, when the words are rudimental, I hope Kyogo can feel the love. He can feel the love, because there's plenty of Celtic supporters showing him love today, and I want your thoughts on it. And as I say, we don't exist to have a pop at our rivals. That's not what this show is about. But those videos were abhorrent.
Absolutely agree. I mean, you can only condemn what you've seen, as you've said, Tony, so well. I mean, it's not about point scoring. For me, racism goes way and above beyond any sort of rivalry between two clubs, one that plays in green and white hoops, one that plays in blue. That's the rivalry that I see. And I think it's time that people, stopped dragging other stuff into, what is already, a huge rivalry in Glasgow as it is. I don't think these other aspects need brought into it. I don't see any joy in what I see. I don't see the funny side of it. And I think it's really sad that what you're saying there is we should be bringing it, not we should, but we are, hopefully Kyogo's feeling the love from us all today. He should have been feeling it for his performances on the pitch so far, not on the back of 4 weeks in the country and having to be subject to that sort of utter prehistoric behaviour that to me just does no place in any country, any culture. It's just really tragic that we're, talking about that when we're in the back of obviously some unbelievable displays domestically on the pitch, particularly from the man in question. And only really do you feel sometimes like it would be in Scotland, that you would be talking about this nonsense. And I'm not going to sit and pop at Rangers supporters. I am in no doubt in my mind there's an element of idiots in all club supporters right across the world. There's going to be an element. But what you're seeing there, you can only see, who it is that's done it. And unfortunately, the Rangers fans on that bus that were subjecting Kyogo to such disgusting chants, and obviously whatever else went with that, I think they need to, take responsibility. The fact Rangers have released a statement about it, I suppose, is a step in the right direction as well. But it's just not what we want to be speaking about. But absolutely, Kyogo, I hope you're feeling the love, and we are 100% behind you.
Now, Amy, you and I both had the pleasure of interviewing Paul Elliott recently. I did for the Celtic Way, you did it for the Soccer Supernova. And Paul Elliott was telling you about things that happened in the late 70s, early 80s. This is 40-50 years ago, Paul Elliott was talking about. And it's still going on. Yeah, you as I said there are no words. And I agree with Russell. Every football club has its element of supporters that bring their club into disrepute and shame them, but as you see, we're commenting on this specific incident in isolation.
Correct.
So that we want to make that clear. And as I said before, not taking chunks out of Rangers fans or the supporters or their club. It's up to Rangers to now deal with that incident and those supporters in the way they see fit. But we have to address it because it was directed at a Celtic player. And as we say, Amy, Paul Elliott was talking about these things 50 years ago, or 40 years ago in his case when he started his career, roughly, in the 80s. And we're still talking about it today in 2021. It's very sad, isn't it?
It's abhorrent, and I think before anything else, we've been quick enough to, maybe call the club out when over the past year they've not been quick enough with statements, and not over just the past year, over a long period of time. But I thought the statement yesterday was concise, it got to the point, and it was done in the right manner at an appropriate time. Rangers as well, I think we're still possibly looking for a proper official statement. A spokesperson has came out, but as long as it's heading in the right direction, then that's just what has to, the direction that this has to be taken in. It is sickening. As you say, we both so recently spoke to Paul Elliott, and that's 30 to 40 years ago, and we're still talking about this now. For a guy that's been in the country for 4 to 6 weeks, as Russell says, we need more Kyogos in this league, in this country. The talent that he's brought across, it's kind of similar, and as you know, Tony, that Paul Elliott, he spoke with Mark Walters saying, and I remember I asked him, why would you want to, go into that culture when you know what your friend, your really good friend, was experiencing? Because he already saw that Walters was experiencing that racism at Rangers. Who's to say that everyone's going to be Paul Elliott? Paul still came to Celtic, obviously, and has an extremely successful period, but he was still victim to the racist abuse. If there's players in the J-League, whoever it may be, that if we're potentially looking at them, if they see that that Kyogo is facing this, why would they really want to come here? It's not a culture that you'd really want to walk into. I don't really know if I'd want to walk into it myself. You're really sticking your head above the parapet if you do. So it's not what we want to be. You want to be welcoming. This is not that sort of stance. So as long as it gets handled properly, and by all means it's on the right tracks, then we have to try and eradicate this. But the club are spot on. This isn't just a one-time incident. How many times has this happened to so many different players, and not just Celtic players? Like we say, Glenn Kamara, Aberdeen, the Hibs players. It's constant, and something needs to change. If it be social media platforms calling it out, and as well, it can't just be the one individual. It's the entire bus. It's fine, fair enough. There's maybe one or two who are partaking in it, but it's the bus as a whole. So, like you say, it has to be left with the authorities now, and hopefully the right action is taken.
We have to stress as well, Russell, that we'll be quick to condemn Celtic supporters if they're involved in anything like this moving forward. You can't. We abhor it in all shapes and forms. Absolutely agree.
If this is not about aiming at it because it's a pot shot at Rangers supporters or their club in any way, shape or form, it's just complete shock and dismay at the treatment someone from another country gets because of their race or nationality. That's all this boils down to. There's nothing, it doesn't matter if I see Celtic supporters doing that. 100%. We'll be sitting on the Monday Club talking about it, calling it out. And that's all you can do really at this stage, because the incident's now happened. You've got to give the player all the support and the backing he needs. You've got to condemn the actions that have happened and hope they get dealt with and educated the people, because that's what that is. Complete lack of education. I mean, if that's getting put down, I'm reading tweets now left, right, centre about it was on the bus away day patter. If that's the level of your patter, comedy's not for you, because that's just not, it's not even funny. It's just childish nonsense that to me is from a forgotten time. So yep, you're absolutely right, Tony. If it's good enough for us to call it out just now when it's a rival's set of supporters that are guilty, we'll certainly do the same if we see it happening by Celtic supporters as well, because it's just not on.
I also think as well, Amy, decent-minded supporters of every club now, they're just sick of it, aren't they? And they are going to try and call it out at every opportunity, and they should call it out at every opportunity, regardless of the club and the perpetrators. Decent-minded football supporters, and I stress the word football supporters, they're just sick of it all now, aren't they?
Absolutely, because then it goes to a human level, and it's kind of what Russell touched upon earlier. It doesn't matter if you're in a red Aberdeen shirt, a green Hibs shirt, or the blue of Rangers. It doesn't matter, because it's on a human level at this point. It's a personal attack. It's not mattering what club you play for or what club you support. It is just on a human level. So, of course, and it is unity. And I think the fact that, there's obviously people a hell of a lot older than myself who have been facing this, for 40 years, or viewing it for 40 years, as we're saying with Paul Elliott, is just sick of it now. We're trying to evolve and it's just getting nowhere.
I think you touched upon it there, Russell. It's about education, isn't it, as well? But also, Amy, you mentioned it there, the Celtic statement was swift, it was quick, it was concise and to the point. Also, as Amy said, maybe something that they hadn't, they weren't, good at doing in the past, but they've supported their player and backed him to the hilt very swiftly and very quickly. Maybe a change in direction as well with Celtic, that they're not going to let these things slip by and idly past. They're going to say something and they're going to speak up for themselves, which was a good thing, I thought.
No, absolutely. I mean, pleasantly surprised by the swiftness of the statement, but long may that continue, and I want the club to take stances at that and, back your player to the tilt, as you say, but also, stepping up for us as a club. At the end of the day, Kyogo's a representative of Celtic as well, and it's about time Celtic, when faced with adversity or faced with unfair or things that they feel are unjust, get it out there, get it said, and start, acting like a big club, as you say, Tony. I think there's been a lot of pressing matters over the years if we remove the race element right now, not playing it down, just meaning with other serious issues that have potentially occurred that have impacted on Celtic, we have at times, been guilty of complete silence when all we were crying out for was the club to be defended in some sort of way, shape or form by the board members, the people at the top. It's a basic requirement of their job is to do that. So I wonder if it is a shift in direction and we're not going to tolerate things that aren't going our way. And whilst, again, not even in the slightest comparing or playing down the Kyogo situation, I've already made my feelings abundantly clear on that. I mean, you look at the next stop for me would be, why is there no fans going to be, allowed at the derby next Sunday? And, can we address that? Are we going to be putting wheels in motion to get that looked at and addressed as quickly as possible as well? Because stuff like that we shouldn't be standing for either. Again, completely different tangent. I just mean in relation to the board's swiftness in dealing with an adverse situation there. I'd like to see it replicated with other football matters as well.
I've mentioned it before, Amy, and Russell said it there too. I thought Celtic acted like a big club last night. I think most Celtic supporters would have been proud of the way their club acted and the swiftness in the way they acted when those videos came to light. So it's a pat on the back for those at the club who noticed that straight away and came out with, as you say, a concise and clear statement. The ticket thing may be something that the club will work on moving forward. That's another issue, but it's part of the wider issue. But if Celtic are going to act like a big club and defend themselves in these situations, then I think most of the support, every Celtic supporters would applaud that, wouldn't they?
Absolutely, and that's why I highlighted it, because we are quick enough to call the club out and say that we wish they maybe done this a bit quicker, or highlighted this at all. But when they do good, you've got to equally praise them just as quick as you are to shoot them down. So again, like you say, it's proven, it's a big club sort of move, and but at the end of the day, it shouldn't need to be a move at all, because it shouldn't need to be making a statement, because this shouldn't be happening this instant in the first place. So like I say, it's a good move from the club. Also, it reflects well, proves they're getting behind their player, but it's now just time for it to be dealt with properly.
Okay, we'll move on. And speaking of the club doing good, Amy, the club did good again on Saturday. Back-to-back home 6-0 win against St Mirren. Ange Postecoglou revolution kicking in, all these great things. We now face a tough week, biggest test of Ange's Celtic managerial career so far, and as you can see along the strap line, what will Celtic take from Ange's biggest week in charge? Russell, what do you expect to take? What do you hope to take? What do you think the club can take? Not in any particular order, you just answer it randomly as you usually do.
Not a problem. I think when we played AZ last week, I felt it was the right time for that challenge to sort of gauge where Ange's sort of development at the squad was. I think now we're entering a week of such importance. Again, I feel it's at the right time for us to sort of gauge how Ange's progression so far as Celtic manager has been made. Undoubtedly, we have, since the opening 3 matches, it has been a vast improvement that we've seen so far. We've seen players come in the club that are exciting the supporters as well, bringing maybe calming influences as well. And then we're seeing, in full effect what Ange Ball can do, particularly at Celtic Park. I think AZ away is still a tricky one. 2-goal cushion. I think that could potentially. I could see that maybe going extra time. I think it might be one. Although having said that, because away goals don't count, so it doesn't necessarily need to be a 2-0 win for AZ. It could be 3-1 or whatever, and it would still go to extra time. I could still think there's still arms and legs in that tie left. I think there's a lot of work to be done over there. But right now, I'm in a positive place with what I've seen of late. I think the efforts that we're creating is just unbelievable. I think it was you that said to me last night on the phone, Tony, 108 shots in the last 3 domestic matches.
Yeah, 104 shots and targets. Something like that. Yeah, I believe so.
It's insane.
That's that, isn't it?
And I think the thing is with the AZ game, again, you were to get through that tie, whether it's via extra time or say they pull off another outrageous result, and who's to say with this team right now, because they're certainly brimming with confidence. I mean, if you were to get the result and qualify for the group stage on Thursday, you've got to be going with the chest puffed out across the Ibrox. No fans or not makes no odds. If anything, if I was a player, I would say the decision to not have fans there reeks of fear. That would be giving me absolute confidence that there is worry over in the enemy's ranks, and that, if you can smell it, take advantage of it and ram it down their throats, that advantage that you might have. So I'm quite confident we'll get a result on Sunday. If I'm honest here, I think even a draw would be a positive result for me, because we certainly didn't look like picking up many of those last year. It's away from home against your rivals, but by all means, I think we'll be going there for 3 points. I don't think Angel, whilst he's done a lot of adapting with his signing policy, bringing in Hart and McCarthy, bringing on McCarthy midweek to shore it up a wee bit, bringing Joe Hart to go long, things like that. It was brilliant to see that adaptation from Ange. But I certainly think he'll start off both matches against both AZ and Rangers with full-on Ange ball.
Amy, I wrote a column an article in the Celtic talking about many milestones, and I was saying that if Ange can achieve a result in Alkmaar, take Celtic through to the group stage of the Europa League and go to Ibrox and win against Rangers in front of no away supporters, then the Celtic fans will start to think that there's a minor miracle man at the helm, but these are the first challenges. These are in his comments, he was kind of throwing down a gauntlet to the Celtic players in his after-match comments against St Mirren. He was saying it with the AZ Alkmaar game was very important. because he knows the importance of European football to Celtic. And then he was asked about the Rangers game, and he said, "I'll worry about that. There'll be a million questions to come after Thursday. I'm concentrating on Thursday." But then he just sort of said, "But I'm excited about it." So it's in the back of his mind, because he knows these are the games you get judged. The judgments come. So he's clearly, whilst his mind is solely focused on Alkmaar, somewhere in the darkest recess he's thinking, right, this is a big, big week. I'm going to prepare my players, and the only way to prepare your players is I'm going to ask you questions now. Can you compete under real pressure? And this is real pressure that Celtic face in the next few days. But as Russell said, there's an air of confidence about them, air of confidence about the manager, air of confidence about the team, and there's an air of confidence about the supporters. It's not arrogance yet, because they've not achieved anything, but they're certainly in a different place from where they were post-Midtjylland and post-Hearts. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, and these are the sort of games that he came for, But you mentioned there that if the team walk away with a win on Thursday and particularly Sunday, then we could be calling, Ange a magician. I think, to be honest, he already is, to the degree that, myself included, he's kind of turned a lot of us quite quickly, in the sense that I don't think any of us believed he could have turned it around quite so quickly after, the Midtjylland results. Who would have thought that these performances and the intensity of these performances were going to come around quite so quick? We were assured that this, high press, we score 6, they score 5, football would be coming our way. That score 6 is exactly where the scoring 6s came, but the conceding certainly hasn't. It's the pace that everything has turned around. We were warned that it could take a good year to things to set in, and I'm not saying that it's all now in the foundations and this is it now for the here on in. Of course it's not. It has been a good few weeks. The same way you can't get carried away with that. The same way we couldn't get too down and out about the defeats at the start, maybe in the pre-season as well. But the work that he's managed to turn around quite so quickly, the confidence that he's instilled, like you say, in that side is quite magical, and you can see it. Players, the turnaround of Ryan Christie, of Tom Rogic, the confidence oozing out of Joe Hart, who's just walked into this side, albeit he's maybe not had an awful lot to do, but he was challenged last week against AZ Alkmaar, and he had some tough tests, especially early on, but the enthusiasm was there. So it's an exciting week, and I don't think you'd really want anyone else at the helm for it. He's oozing confidence himself in the press conferences, like you say, the way that he's even just looking to Thursday. Of course Sunday's in the back of the mind. Can't try and pull the wool over our eyes. It is, of course they're going to have to say that it's take each game as they come, and the next one's the next important. But when it's a Thursday to Sunday, that's a quick turnaround. You can't afford to not have a little glimpse on Sunday. Thursday is massive, of course, as the tie is not dead and buried, but there has to be a confidence going into it. Could have easily scored more against AZ on Wednesday last week again, but equally could have conceded. It's not down and out, but what a fantastic result from the weekend to carry on into this, and no matter what happens on Thursday, well, the ideal situation is, of course, that the extra time does not partake, because then it's a long drag, it's a journey as well, it's a long time for Sunday. It's that extra half an hour can make all the difference. But it's an exciting week, as you say, and the confidence that Ange has already instilled in the side and in the support is quite magic.
Russell, the shift in mindset amongst the supporters as well as the management team and the players, is that you're confident because this is a team that's got goals in it. Goals win matches, regardless of the opposition. Goals win matches, right? I mean, it's a fact, So you're going over to Holland, yeah. Well, there's trepidation, because AZ were a good side, but you kept them out at Celtic Park. 3 weeks ago, you wouldn't have thought that was possible, to keep a clean sheet against a team like AZ Alkmaar, who were a very good side. 3 weeks ago, you were dreading going to Ibrox, or you certainly weren't looking forward to it. I don't know if dread's the right word, but there was certainly a wee bit of fear and trepidation amongst the Celtic supporters. Now you're brimming, you're thinking, bring it on, because you want Celtic to test themselves now against a decent Dutch Eredivisie side and against the current champions. So you're thinking, bring it on, because it will be a gauge for everybody, a gauge for Ange, a gauge for the players, a gauge for the supporters. but you're not worried now what can possibly happen because you're thinking Celtic can inflict damage on these teams now. That's Absolutely. Why your mindset's completely changed.
Yeah, and I think as well with regards to the gauge that you're referring to, I think the gauge that we're all expecting it to be is a very positive one, because as you say, the mindset has completely flipped. So we'll look forward to seeing what they can do. Basically, what I think as well. So I've got the producer in the background there. He's putting me off my game here, right? So I do think it's going to be positive results that we expect. All right, I think right now the mindset of the supporters has changed, myself included. I thought the game at Ibrox would come too early in Ange's career, particularly on the back of what we'd been told, and we had been told this is something that takes 6 months to a year, which to me wasn't really on, considering the prize bounty at the end of this year, and it wasn't something I found palatable. Instead, he's blown everyone away by how quick he's got to play, and the football's unrecognisable. We have to be abundantly clear on that. The football that we're watching is unrecognisable from last year, and in fact, some of the stuff we've seen so far has been up there with some of the best football I can remember seeing as a Celtic supporter. I know that sounds over hysteric, but the honest truth is sometimes I've been blown away, particularly in the first halves of these games. They come out the traps at a speed that is just unprecedented, and they do look the amount of opportunities they're creating that they could give someone a real doing this season. I don't know how many goals you're all thinking of, but
I know you were going to do that.
A team that comes a cropper, you know.
We heard it here first. Russell's going for the magical number of 10, Amy, a perfect 10 he thinks they're going to score against somebody this season. But he does make a valid point that Celtic they're coming out the traps at breakneck speed, and it's clearly an instruction to try and blow teams away in that first half, because the first half against Hearts, first half against St Mirren, they were particularly impressive, and could have been out of sight in both of those games. 104 shots on target, or 104 shots at goal in 3 domestic games. I mean, that's incredible, absolutely incredible numbers. So as I said there, you have confidence in this team to go out, create opportunities, and also score. That's why, and we're not saying that they're going to go to Holland and win, and we're not saying we're going to go to Ibrox and blow Rangers away, because to quote Russell, flip it could go wrong as well in both of those matches. But you now know there's a competitive element to Celtic, and they will go for 90 minutes and beyond in both of those games, because that's what the manager's demanding.
These are astounding figures, and while this is fantastic and it is all attack, I just want to draw back to, we were warned that, if the opposition score 4, fine, we'll score 5. But it's the fact that it's been clean sheets as well. And I find that equally impressive. A happy defence means a confident attack. And it's just, I think the joyous bit out of it is that we're probably not even seeing our best at the back. I think Starfelt is still a little bit shaky, and he's taking time to adapt. But there's no denying that these clean sheets on the back are definitely going to aid to that. There are still some pelters coming in for Greg Taylor. I don't always see it myself. I understand that I would probably like another left back in, just even as a little bit of support. But right now, I am still more than happy with Greg Taylor. I think he's getting in, he's attacking. Fine, his crosses aren't always the best, but you're getting a few. I thought it was a great cross the other day for a bad second, I think it was. He's getting down to the back. He's linking up really well with Forrest and Christie as well, I think. But it's the fact that there's not even the best back line or the most confident back line, but we're still keeping clean sheets. And again, that's a credit to Joe Hart, because I think over the last few seasons as well, we've always said, it might take a little bit of time for the goalkeeper and his centre defenders to build that relationship. But the experience that Joe Hart's brought in, and we can say that all the time, that you bring in an older player and they should automatically bring their experience in. But that isn't always the case. But this really has been instilled. There was a whole talk the other day that Cal McGregor was going to, give him the captain's armband. Instead, it was obviously to Ryan Christie. Hart does not need an armband around his bicep to be a leader. you can see it through the game. You can see as well his emotion. I think it was maybe after David Turnbull's goal, the camera cut to him and he celebrated away. He is already in the mindset, and that is great to see. So there's that issue there, that there's a little bit of leadership in the back as well. Stephen Welsh is ultimately stepping up. But as much as the attacking prowess is there, I'm equally impressed that the clean sheets are there as well, because how many times have we said it on this podcast, and over the years we've watched Celtic maybe score 4, sometimes even score 5, but in the 80th to 90th minute a sloppy goal is lost because the concentration goes, or there is, albeit a moment of magic sometimes from the opposition. But it doesn't even need to be a Rangers or an Aberdeen. It can be against a St Mirren, it can be against Dundee, that we lose that last minute goal just in a little bit of lack of confidence. But the intensity is there for the 90 minutes in the attack and in the defence, and that is equally impressive for me.
Russell, I'm looking at that team. Ralston, Welsh, Christie, Roderick, Turnbull, Abada, Forrest, Kyogo, Edward. There's 9 players who've contributed goals.
Which is an astonishing stat already, isn't it, really? So
you look at that team, there's threats all over the place.
Yeah.
And potent ones at that as well. Whatever's happening with Ange Ball, they're all comfortable with it now, and they are starting to go for that 90 and beyond, as he said. We'll rest at half-time, we'll rest at full-time, we'll celebrate when it's won. But, until then, you go and you go and you go. And they were still trying to score a 7th against Dundee, still trying to score a 7th against St Mirren on Saturday. Even Yeti when he came on, his cameo, 8 minutes, and I think Andy Raff chided me for giving him 1 and the man by man's he said he was worth more than 1, so I apologise to Andy Raff for that. Andy, you're probably right, it just didn't come across on my screen when I was watching. Had I been at the football, I'd probably get a better feel for his contribution. But just little things like that, even Yeti when he's coming on for 8 minutes, chase that ball down, chase the initial mistake, help set up the goal. So it's Ange's getting through to all the players that they are going to perform, regardless if they're playing for 80 minutes, 90 minutes or 8 minutes.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, speaking of relentless, I've got a relentless producer, right, I've got an off-the-cuff announcement to make, which has been pretty good news for us. So a Celtic State of Mind is now finalists in 3 categories at this year's Football Content Awards, the FCAs. So we're in the running for the best club content creator, the best international podcast, and the best charitable campaign. Now you can imagine me trying to concentrate with all these. So thank you for everyone who's put us in that position. Obviously we'll be keeping you up to date on the socials with how to then vote for us going forward as well, and hopefully we will bring at least one of those trophies home. But in true Celtic style, why not make it a treble?
Well, Amy, there are no words to that, is there? A treble. Russell's not a greedy man. He wants the treble. Why not? Well, you've got to be in it to win it, and we're competing, so that's what we like. And thanks to everybody that tunes in and watches, because that's why we're at that level, that we have been nominated in 3 categories. So you have to say thank you to everybody for that.
And I'd just like to apologise if for the last 7 or 8 minutes, as that information was being filtered through to me, if I seemed slightly distracted. Apologies for that, but it was important to get the message across. Big well done to Paul, obviously, you've got to say that as well, not just because I'm in the mothership, but he's doing a terrific job managing to guide us as rascals, to get nominated for such awards. So, I mean, let's just hope we can bring one of them home.
A ragtag and bobtail team, Amy. Unlike the rip-roaring, free-scoring, never boring Glasgow Celtic, they're doing the business on the park. But yeah, I mean, you touched on it there, Amy, as well. I've been watching Joe Hart since he came in, and the difference in instilling of confidence, as you say, just somebody that they can rely on, is night and day. And it is just different things like that when the camera panned onto him after a goal against St Mirren. He was like, yes. And you're thinking, from the moment he walked in the door, he's got it. There's just people that come in and they get it. And Joe Hart gets it clearly. And he has decided I'm going to enjoy this, I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to tell others and give them the benefit of my experience. I believe he also gave his gloves to Jack Anick at the end, and he spoke to him at half-time, because Jack Anick said he ran towards him at half-time and said, look, I know you're having, I know it's a disaster, but in the second half, just try and make some saves, because Jack Anick said he was worried it was going to be 10-0 Russell. He was going to be embarrassed. And Joe Hart spoke to him and said, look, I've been there, I know what it's like. Just try and make some saves second half and feel good about yourself. And then I'm sure there was an article that said he gave him his gloves at the end as well, which is a cracking touch. Just things like that you say, this guy's really bought into it from the moment he walked in. Gave a very impressive interview when he was unveiled. And as you say, doesn't need a captain's armband. He is a leader.
Absolutely. I wrote a little column about him the other day, and it was that whole, we've found the goalkeeper that we needed, but we've also found that leader. We spoke about it so much at the time that I was well in the belief that Cal McGregor was the only option for Celtic captaincy. One, because he deserved it, but two, because there wasn't really a lot of other options. Chris Hyer was getting touted about, but I think even by that point, if he wasn't away, it was evident he was going to be away. But there is somebody there now that there's that bit of confidence in the back. And he's like you say, he's just encapsulated everything within it. I definitely did see, like you say, at half time. I think he said to Jack, I'm like, regroup, make some saves. It's a classy little touch as well. 4-0 is that goalkeepers union that so many, if you speak to any former goalkeeper, they really do, take pride in that and take pride in their relationship with their fellow professionals. It's just really great to see somebody coming so quickly off the name that Joe Hart is. And I think a lot of Celtic fans, myself included, we've delivered some pillars to Joe Hart over the years. I always think about the kicking of the advertisement board against Italy in the World Cup, the sheer frustration. He's made there was a few blunders at Man City as well, and his career ultimately did take a little bit of a dip. He was well loved out in Italy when he went out to Torino, but it doesn't quite work out for him down at Burnley. I can't remember what this final Premier League game was. I think it was a hammering. It was 4 or 5-0 or something like that. And after that, I think there was a lot of like, wow, where is Joe Hart going to end up? So he's been given a lifeline here, and he certainly has grabbed it with both hands. He knew what he was walking into ultimately, but I think it's also instilling a lot of confidence in others. I think as much as at the time I was saying, Scott Bain had to be the one ahead of Barkas, I almost think that Scott Bain is more comfortable almost knowing that he's a number two. He's a fantastic deputy. Anytime that he's been called upon as the deputy, it has stood up and took charge of that. We all remember him at Ibrox. I don't know, maybe the pressure was too much to be Celtic number one, but can already see, in pictures, and I've spoke to a few people as well, that he himself as well has got a little bit of confidence back within him, especially under Ange, but with Joe Hart beside him as well. Fantastic coach, and Stevie Woods is still there. It's going to be a great asset to Hart. So everything's just ticking along nicely. And like I say, I still laugh a little bit that Joe Hart's actually a Celtic goalkeeper, but hey, I'll take it.
Now, Russell, something else that emerged over the weekend was a possible deal for Kevin Nisbet. We have spoken before in many programmes about signing the best young Scottish players or the best Scottish players around. Nisbet's name was one that kept coming up. Mm-hmm. Now there was talk of a swap deal involving Lee Griffiths and cash heading to Easter Road, but not so sure about the wherewithals or the validity in that for a club like Hibs. But certainly Nisbet, and you'll laugh, Nisbet is top. If you're talking about shopping locally, Nisbet is top of your persons of interest list, is he not? In my opinion, or he should be. So when Celtic, he was left out yesterday. Official reason, illness, people putting two and two together, trying to work it out. And I think Celtic have been quoted £4 million for Nisbet. So they know what to do now, don't they? They know what Hibs want, and if Celtic want Nisbet, then they might have to shell out a bit of money for Celtic. For a player coming from a Scottish club. I think only Scott Brown and Duncan Ferguson are the others that have gone for £4 million from one Scottish club to another. So they're joining esteemed company if Celtic were to decide that that's the man they want. Do you see Kevin Nisbet being a Celtic player first and foremost?
Yes, I think it would make sense if the deal for the VVV striker in Holland, if that's fallen by the wayside, then I think Kevin Nisbet would be more than an attractive option for Celtic. I think we had so many pods, Tony, where we spoke in the summer. I think this was before Ange had even been appointed, and where we spoke, and Amy, you'll agree with this, where we spoke about all this list of domestic players that Celtic should be targeting in the summer. Unbelievably, because we thought, well, the ones that we're getting from overseas aren't settling in quick enough. We were talking about Barkas was going to take 12 months to settle, Ajeti perhaps the same. Obviously, the pandemic playing a part in that, I get that. But we thought maybe it's going to be a back-to-basics sort of transfer window where we buy the best from our own domestic league. No quarantine, no settling in period because they already know the league. And, let's see where that takes us. Instead, Ange is managing to get 19-year-olds from Israel to hit the ground running. He's managing to get guys to come from Japan, hit the ground running. So what's he going to be able to do with someone brought from the league that already knows how to put the ball in the net past all of these goalkeepers in the league already? He's only going to enhance them. And right now, for me, Kevin Nisbet brings me closer to my holy grail 10. It might not be 10 in a row, but if we are to have double figures day, Kevin Nisbet would be an asset to doing so. I also think as well, Tony, statement signing. See if you see the best player in the league. I think every summer Celtic should be looking. We'll still have scouts casting their nets far and wide, and we've spoke about Ange's obviously is going to be able to take us to new markets even further wide than before that we have no knowledge of as supporters, that Ange is going to say, well, in fact, he's already on record now, thanks to the MSN for keeping up with us and asking the important questions, Tony. When he was asked about the J-League last week, he said he would love to, but it'd be more like January. But all that aside, I still think at least every summer we should be identifying who's the best player out with Celtic and Rangers in that top league right now. Go and get them. Go and get them, because that's you acting like a big club in your country as well. It's signings of intent, statement signings. And at this moment in time, for me, the most attractive player outside the two main Glasgow clubs is Kevin Nisbet. Go and get him.
Amy, do you agree with that? Kevin Nisbet, person of interest, go and get him. Whatever Hibs are offering, just pay the money because you see him as a future Celtic star of the future.
It's getting tough.
I'll try that again. Future Celtic star. We'll end that sentence anyway.
It's undoubtedly getting tougher and tougher. From a Celtic perspective, absolutely, go out and get them. But from a Hibs slant, they'd be asking an awful lot. Christian Doidge is out injured now till December, I think, if not later. The good news is, of course, for them, Martin Boyles just signed a long-term deal after the speculation to Aberdeen last week was quickly shut down. And then on the other hand, would Hibs really, and I know, Tony, you wrote a piece on this as well, but would Hibs really want to land Lee Griffiths? Do you really want to get yourself mingling within that? So I firmly believe if we do actually get Nisbet, Griffiths won't be part of the deal, because I don't think Hibs will want him back as much as he may want Hibs. I think that's pretty obvious and pretty blatant, because I do believe it is over for Lee Griffiths at Celtic. I don't understand why Hibs would want to get themselves involved in that. I don't think it would be well received by the fans. And as everyone kind of likes to point out, I am obviously through the East. I know lots of Hibs fans who certainly would not want this. And again, you certainly cannot blame them. It's almost like we're just trying to offload them, get rid of them, get them out of our sort of circus and chuck them in somewhere else. I think it'd be a terrible, terrible decision for Hibs. And like I say, it's the slant of Christian Doidge as well. They've just lost him. If they were to lose Nisbet as well, it's a tough season for Jack Ross. And it started off okay. European dreams obviously not quite worked out the way that they were hoping. But it's a long season. Not leaving them with an awful lot of time. If Nisbet is to be sold, James Nisbet, if Nisbet is to be sold, then they're leaving themselves a little bit short. So I don't I don't see it happening as much as I was maybe hopeful, perhaps say even June, July, early July, because of what's unfolding at Hibs. And like I say, I cannot see why any club, especially in this country, would want to be taking on Lee Griffiths right now.
I mean, Russell, we had a conversation on the phone yesterday and we were saying possibly a figure of money plus maybe a Mikey Johnston or an Adam Montgomery or an Owen Moffat might be more palatable for a club like Hibs if Celtic are serious about signing Kevin Nisbet and Hibs are willing to do a deal. As Amy says, the whole Christian Doyce thing might throw a spanner in that works. But if Celtic really want Kevin Nisbet, then they're going to either have to stump up Hibs' asking price or stump up a significant amount of dough plus something that's attractive to them in terms of a player for a year. I just said a Mikey Johnston, Adam Montgomery or an Owen Moffat because they're attack-minded players like Nisbet. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason that I said them. So that's an option, you know. But Celtic cannot go a low ball for Nisbet because it'll just get kicked out of the park again, won't it?
No, absolutely, and I think as well. I mean, whilst you're not, you know, whatever it is Hibs are going to be looking for in today's transfer market, it is not going to be an obscene amount of money or something you would not pay for a proven goal scorer from a different league. It's because you then balance out the league that he's in and you start thinking, oh, 3-4 million sounds a lot. We didn't blink an eyelid when we paid $4.5 million for Kyogo, for example. We just thought, don't know anything about this guy. It's blindsided us. I don't remember anyone saying anything about the fee being a particularly large fee or substantial fee, and yet we knew nothing about Kyogo. Of course, it looks like an absolute bargain. So for me, if the fee to be bandied about would be something around the 4 million range, I don't think that is a lot when you're playing for a 40 million jackpot at the end of the season. And you're probably likely still, I think, to sell Edouard between now and the end of August for double that, treble that perhaps, 12, 15 million, I think we're looking at probably is the more realistic figure, I think, for Edouard, as opposed to the dizzy heights of 20 to 30 that we maybe had ambitions of before in the past. But I think now, if he is going to go, you're still going to have enough and more to cover the Nisbet deal. So it makes sense. I think you're absolutely right about Griffiths, both of you. For me, brands are so important in football. You know, we see people always about their own personal careers in life and about their own brand. Well, football clubs care about their brand as well. And now it's all about how does that look if it's not good enough for one club and he's out, he's in the wilderness in terms of team selection because of off-field antics being, well, one of the reasons, we don't know. Maybe it is a footballing reason as well. But you'd like to think what happened off the field is enough for him to be ostracised from that first team affairs. Now, if that's good enough for one club, do you really want to be the club that says, we're going to put up with that, we'll still play him? It's not a great look. You only need to also look at the division in the stands, all right, that it caused at Celtic. That was on a human level, not because we're Celtic supporters that was causing upset. So that exact same division is going to be mirrored at any club I think Lee Griffiths goes to. I don't see how the opinion would be different or slanted in any different way. I think there'll be some true fans out there that will say, well, as soon as you put on the shirt, we should be applauding you and backing you. And then you're going to have another section that say, no, we're not having someone that's had off-field antics that representing our club. And therefore, that to me is an argument that could be happening at any football club. Therefore, I don't see it likely that Hibs would accept him as a make weight in the deal, or whatever that saying is. And then I also think as well, he'd probably go in there as a top earner. Don't see how that would be particularly palatable to current pros that are there and supporters either. I do think the loan thing, you could be on the money with that. I think if that's what needs to be done as a sweetener, particularly if you've got Doidge out till, was it Christmas you said, sort of time, where you've got someone like a Mikey Johnson who has scored goals at this level and perhaps just needs a consistent run again, or you're looking for Montgomery, someone who's really on the cusp of a wave right now in his career and could be getting a chance to get first-team football now on a regular basis, a team playing good football like Hibs with a good manager. These sort of deals, I think, on top of the cash that Hibs want, sound a lot more likely. So in the most long-winded way, Tony, yes, I think Nisbet could be a person of interest for Celtic.
Now, Amy, how good would it be in terms of this week if Celtic could bring in a couple of players, go to Holland and get a result, and then go to Ibrox and get a result. That's the kind of treble you want. New players, a result in Holland, a result at Ibrox. I mean, what a treble that would be, speaking of trebles. And how good would you feel about yourself going into the international break?
It's the ideal week, isn't it? You know, and over the last few weeks, has said on the cusp of signings, or there's a few signings going to be coming in. It's not obviously materialised quite yet, but the window's not done. A week is a long time in football, and we know that, and a lot of things can change within a week. This is massive. There's no doubt, no matter what actually happens on the pitch, new signings are going to bring enthusiasm, they're going to bring excitement amongst the players and amongst the fans. It's what we want to be seeing. And it's just getting all behind us, like you say, heading into the international break on a bit of a high. Didn't happen very often last season at all, did it? So it'd be great. Bolster up the squad a little bit more. It's already looking to get into shape, and just certainly looking like he's got his side playing the way that he wants. But I think equally, you know, as much as it's vital to get players in, keeping a hold of players as well. I'd love to see the contract offered to Ryan Christie to really get him in. I think that was a great post from him as well. You know, obviously we spoke earlier that Cal Mack gave him the armband. Christie acknowledged it later on Instagram, because, you know, that's the way to do it now. But he was, you could tell that the pride was there. And I think, to be honest, when he got that armband, he took that responsibility, albeit there wasn't obviously a lot to do, but he's just looking so much more engaged, isn't he? He's looking like the Ryan Christie perhaps under Brendan Rodgers, and just from a few years ago when he was really, you know, up there with the top assists, top goals, top everything at the top of the leagues. You know, he was flying for Scotland as well. Everything was just clicking. So I know there's talks again that Southampton are perhaps sniffing around, hopes that the pull of Stuart Armstrong isn't there, because Ryan Christie right now is just playing beautiful football. Everything is just ticking along nicely. He's linking up so well with David Turnbull. Here's a guy we've spent 50 minutes on a show. This guy scored a hat-trick at the weekend. We've not even mentioned his name once yet. David Turnbull was absolutely exceptional, you know, at the weekend as well. And there was a few coming throughout the summer saying that perhaps, you know, it wouldn't be a bad deal to maybe let David Turnbull go. What were they thinking? That was a terrific performance yet again. You know, a bad 2 goals, like you say, at 19 years of age, he's just settled in so well. Everything is just going along so nicely. Ryan Christie is such a massive part of that as well. Tom Rogic coming on and still making such an impact. You know, the Tom Rogic ball for David Turnbull's for the hat-trick, that little reverse through the legs of the defender, that's what we know Tom Rogic for. And it's the joy that you see. Like you say, even the ambition from Ayeti to, I think a few fans were, or there was perhaps a few calls that it was maybe a bit robust. It was a shoulder to shoulder. He just won the ball, nudged his man out the way a little bit. But even that, the ambition was there for him, you know, and the aggression to try and get the ball back, to get a play going. It was putting the side under pressure, which is something that Celtic haven't done for so many years. That intensity in the final third hasn't been there, especially when so many goals up. How many times have we seen Celtic maybe score 2 or 3 in the first half, sit back, maybe grab 1 in the second, but there's no real ambition and no real, you know, search for more goals. But that's what we're seeing under Ange, and it is a joy to see. So keep Ryan Christie, a few signings coming in the door, and then it's an all-round good summer, I think.
Russell, you agree with that? Keep Ryan Christie, bring in a few signings, 1 in Holland, or get a result in Holland, 1 at Ibrox, job's a good one. You go into the international break shouting from the rooftops and feeling much better about yourself as a Celtic supporter.
Absolutely. It all sounds rosy when you put it like that, definitely. I think the thing is with Christie, we're certainly buttering him up the right way, aren't we? You know, he's getting regular football again. He's in the starting 11. He's been allowed to express himself. He's got a coach who clearly understands how to enhance Ryan Christie's game, as opposed to just tell him just to shoot on sight, mate. They're giving him the captain's armband now. It looked like Cal Mack nearly slipped up and went to give it to Joe Hart, but I think there was a wee bit of mind games going on there by going, no, remember, keep him sweet, give him it. So I think there must have been a wee prior deal done that if we were coasting, then it would be Christie who'd get the captain's armband, although it did look to me like McGregor's instinct was to go to Joe Hart. So, you know, which, you know, it's quite a fair distance away for Christie to be getting, you know, a mistaken identity, you know. So if they are going about their way to try to try and keep Christie at the club. I see what they're doing, and I do not blame them one little bit for it, by the way. I certainly think you're right. I think you're seeing the Ryan Christie of old right now. I think he could come, sign a new deal, and even if come the summer he then goes, look, I've gave you another year as promised because things are going well, you'll now get a fee for me, but play ball and let me go, then fair enough. But his chances of going to a better club, I think, will be if he spends longer at Celtic, which is ironic because I know that, the end game is that he's maybe wanting to test himself in other leagues. But I don't see the point in going to a team that's not of his level. And I think if Ryan Christie can have one of those seasons Amy's touching on, up there in the goals charts, up there in the assist charts again, and obviously what you witness literally on the field has been outstanding also, because it's not all about numbers and stats. I think it'd be quite amazing to then watch what level of clubs are going to be interested in Christie. I said, remember, I think it was at the end of last season, I was worried he might end up playing in Turkey or something like that, and the move to the EPL that he thinks of coming because of his attitude might not come. I'm convinced now that he probably will have an offer on the table from someone in the EPL, but why make it just a someone that you go to? Why not make it a somebody that you go to? A real club of stature and prestige. And I think if Christie can put in, as his early season form sort of began, if he can, do that over the course of the next 10 months, then I think he could be looking at far better clubs being, coming in sniffing for him. His opportunities might be that are presented to him might actually be more attractive. So why not stay and enjoy your football another year, Ryan? Do what's right.
And speaking of good players, Amy touched upon him there. Turnbull, we haven't mentioned Turnbull, so let's mention Turnbull.
Totally.
You know my thoughts on Turnbull. I've told everybody that would listen, he's a baller. Even when people were, as Amy said, advocating to get shot of him, I was just like, no, you resist that. The boy can play. And I've been watching him closely. Well, he's very accurate with his shooting. If it doesn't hit the target, it goes past the post by a whisker. He cracked that one off the post on Saturday even before he scored. But the one he scored from outside the box, he's pretty lethal. From between 20 and 25 yards, he usually hits it in between the frame of the goal, if not in the net, which I love about Turnbull. And he's just got a keen eye for goal. And also the one he scored when the goalie dropped the ball, presence of mind to be in there, and then just ask questions later, smash it in the net. And then went in with it hurt to get his hat-trick because the goalkeeper was coming out, there was a player coming in, but jabbed the leg out, knowing if he gets a touch, it's going in. Wanting a hat-trick, as Amy said, that hunger, Amy, to go and get his hat-trick. It was a lovely pass in, but there's still a bit of work to do to score the hat-trick goal.
You're talking, absolutely about the hat-trick goal, but the one outside the box, I don't know when defenders will learn to not give David Turnbull so much space. He had acres. He had acres of space, and I appreciate, obviously, since we're down to 10, but the time to, set himself up, take a touch, turn even, and like you say, he's never a million miles off. He's just oozing a class right now. I was a part of it as well. I think a few weeks ago, it almost looked like he was just a little bit lost, a little bit confused, and I was a little bit worried as to where does David Turnbull really fit in right now, because it was more Ryan Christie was really succeeding, Forrest was succeeding, Tom Rogic was succeeding, and I just thought, wow, where do we fit David Turnbull into here? But, Ange just managed to find a way that all three complement each other, or if it be Rogic is on the bench or whatever, and Abada's coming back in. There's a lot of rotation, but it's good, it's healthy, it's keeping the side fresh, and much rather that problem, you want that sort of headache. That's one of the good headaches to be having. So, it is a joy to see. But like I say, it surely can't be much longer that David Turnbull gets that much room on the edge of the box.
Russell, Mr. Turnbull, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's came on leaps and bounds since we put him in that slightly deeper role and brought in Tom Rogic to play in the number 10 role. I wonder if that's maybe one of the reasons why he's getting that space at the edge of the box, because he's coming from a deeper position and it's less expected. But the way we play, everyone's going to be, pushing on, I think, beyond where they might be set up in the formation at the beginning of the game. He's shooting. I thought that goal from outside the box had. I'm not saying the exact same, but actually, before, because I know the Nakamura one was a joke. I actually thought the way he went through the ball and got that sort of movement on it, the swerve going out the way, reminded me, shall we say, a wee bit of Nakamura's against them. A long time ago that was now. But no, the movement he gets to the ball, his strike accuracy is good. Turnbull's going to be someone who's looking to break his goal scoring sort of record. I think he got 16 one season for Motherwell. He's got to be targeting that now, you know, and saying, look, you know, I'm playing with a better team right now. I'm brimming with confidence. I've got a few on the board already. That should be a target, I think, and a realistic one for David Turnbull going forward. I'll just say as well, obviously, because I know we'll be nearing the end, but if you have been watching, thanks for logging in on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. I've lost count of how many social medias there are. But I meant to say that earlier, so aye.
I wanted to say one more thing before we end the broadcast and the bulletin. Willie Collum, spot on Saturday by sending Alan Power off. We're quick to shout at referees and accuse them of all sorts, but big up to Willie Collum for taking no nonsense, because it was a shocking challenge on Ryan Christie, and Willie Collum saw it for what it was, a shocking challenge. He reffed the game and quite rightfully showed Alan Power the red card.
Fair. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's up for debate, you know. I think it is. It's frightening that we're finding, you know, fans alike saying, you know, that could just be a yellow. How that is a yellow in any country, any league is beyond me. So, like you say, we are quick enough, similar to Celtic, we're quick enough to call upon refs when they're not in the right, but we have to be equally quick when they do something right.
This has been a Celtic State of Mind, the Monday Club, with me, Tony Haggerty, Russell Boyce, and the amazing Amy Canavan. Thank you for watching.